Have you ever wondered why someone who said they loved you can disappear without looking back and still somehow circle your mind every single day? It doesn't make sense. One moment there was warmth, messages, plans, a future that felt real. Then silence, a cold shift in tone, short replies, distance you could feel through a screen. You replay everything, the last conversation, the last look, the last good night. You search for the mistake, the wrong word, the moment you push too hard. You tell yourself if you could just understand it, you could fix it. But what if their silence isn't about a lack of feeling? What if it's about too much of it? When an avoidant pulls away, it feels personal, like rejection, like abandonment. It hits something deep inside you, a fear you thought you had under control. Suddenly you're anxious, restless, checking your phone, overthinking every minute that passes without a message. And the worst part? They seem fine, calm, detached, almost relieved. That contrast burns. You feel everything at once. They appear to feel nothing. But here's the truth. Most people never see in the middle of the pain. Avoidant detachment is not indifference. It's protection. When closeness starts to feel overwhelming, when emotions run too deep, their nervous system doesn't lean in. It shuts down. Not because you weren't enough, because it felt like too much. Avoidant attachment is wired around one core fear: losing independence, being consumed, depending on someone and then being hurt. So when intimacy grows, when the bond becomes real, something inside them pulls the emergency brake. Distance feels safer than vulnerability. And when they create that distance, it looks like certainty. It looks like they've moved on. It looks final. But internally, it's rarely that clean. At first, there's relief, space, breathing room. The pressure fades, the intensity drops. Their world feels stable again. That relief convinces them they made the right decision. Meanwhile, you're spiraling. This mismatch in timing is what makes everything feel unfair. You process the breakup immediately. They delay it. You feel the loss instantly. They feel it later. And that delay tricks you into thinking they never cared. But emotions don't disappear just because someone avoids them. They get postponed, suppressed, buried under distractions and logic and pride. The silence you're experiencing right now might not be the end of the story. It might be the beginning of a process you can't see yet. Here's where most people make a fatal mistake. They interpret distance as proof of permanent loss. Panic takes over. They reach out again and again. They try to convince, to explain, to remind, to fight for the connection. But pressure is the one thing an avoidant mind cannot tolerate. The more you push, the more their nervous system screams for space. It's not that love disappears. It's that fear gets louder. And when fear is louder than love, they run. If you understand this, something shifts inside you. The silence stops feeling like a verdict. It starts feeling like information. Their withdrawal isn't a measure of your worth. It's a reflection of their wiring. Right now, you may feel powerless, like the outcome is entirely in their hands, like you're waiting for a decision that could define your future. But what if that's not true? What if the real leverage isn't in chasing them back, but in understanding the psychological rhythm they move through after they leave? Because there is a rhythm. And when you see it clearly, you stop reacting emotionally to every day of silence. You stop interpreting distance as doom. You start seeing patterns instead of chaos. You feel steadier, stronger, in control again. And when that happens, everything changes. Not just your chances with them, but your relationship with yourself. Control changes everything. The moment you stop seeing their silence as rejection and start seeing it as a pattern, you step out of panic. You stop reacting. You start observing. And observation is power. because there is a sequence unfolding behind the scenes. Right now, if the breakup is fresh, they feel lighter, not happier, lighter. The pressure is gone, the emotional intensity has cooled. Their nervous system feels safe again. That relief can look like confidence, like certainty, like they've already moved on. It's an illusion. Relief is not resolution. It's just the first reaction to distance. While you're fighting the urge to reach out, they're convincing themselves they made the logical choice. They replay the moments that felt heavy, the conversations that demanded vulnerability, the expectations that felt like responsibility. They build a story where leaving equals strength. And if you chase them during this phase, you confirm that story. You become the pressure they're trying to escape. But if you don't, something subtle begins to shift. Silence stretches. Days pass, then weeks. The emotional noise fades. Distractions lose their intensity. The ego that felt so sure starts to quiet down. This is where curiosity is born. They check your profile. Just casually, just once. They wonder why you haven't reached out. They expected emotion. They expected pursuit. They expected proof that they still matter. When that proof doesn't come, the brain fills in the gaps. Uncertainty creeps in, and uncertainty is powerful. It activates the same neural pathways as desire. What we can't fully access, we value more. What feels slightly out of reach, we think about longer. Now the memories begin to change. At first, they focused on what felt overwhelming. Now distance softens the edges. The arguments fade, the tension blurs. What remains are the quiet moments, the inside jokes, the way you made them feel understood. Emotional memory is selective, and distance edits the story. This is when the internal conflict starts. Pride says, stay away. Attachment says, reach out. Fear says, don't risk it. Longing says, maybe it was real. They won't show you this battle. Avoidants process internally, quietly. But the tension builds, and here's where the stakes rise for you. If during this entire process you've been spiraling, posting for attention, sending emotional messages, breaking no contact every time the pain spikes, you interrupt the cycle. You reset their relief. You hand control back to their fear. But if you've stayed grounded, something else happens. Your absence becomes loud, not dramatic, not performative, just steady. You reclaim your routines. You rebuild your focus. You pour energy into your body, your work, your growth. Not to make them jealous, not to manipulate, but to stabilize yourself. That stability radiates, and people feel it, even from a distance. Avoidants return to what feels safe, not what feels desperate, not what feels chaotic. Safe. Safety is calm. Safety is self-assured. Safety is someone who doesn't demand, but also doesn't beg. When you embody that, you change the dynamic completely. Now, if they reach out, it's not because you forced it. It's because their attachment system reactivated. Because the silence created space for missing you. Because your composure made them question their certainty. But this is the part that transforms everything. You're no longer waiting. You're no longer measuring your worth by their timeline. You understand that some will come back, some won't, and neither outcome defines you. That shift is magnetic. Desperation repels. Self-respect attracts. When you stop trying to control their return and start controlling your response, you win either way. If they come back, you meet them from strength, not fear. If they don't, you've already built a version of yourself that doesn't crumble in their absence. This is bigger than getting an ex back. It's about breaking the cycle where someone else's avoidance dictates your emotional state. It's about proving to yourself that silence doesn't destroy you. It refines you. And the moment you truly believe that, you stop chasing love. You start becoming it. You start becoming it. And that is where the real shift happens. Because when you become the stability, the calm, the grounded presence, you are no longer operating from fear of loss. You are operating from self-respect, and self-respect changes the entire emotional equation. Now the stakes are different. If they come back, it is no longer about relief. It is about alignment. It is no longer about filling a void. It is about choosing from strength. But here is what most people never prepare for. When an avoidant ex returns, they rarely come back transformed. They come back curious, testing, unsure. They reach out softly. A message, a reaction, a casual check-in that pretends nothing ever broke. This moment is critical. If you collapse back into old patterns, the cycle resets. If you overgive, over-explain, over-accommodate, you recreate the pressure that made them run. The dynamic goes back to anxious and avoidant, pursuer and distancer, hope and disappointment. And the second exit will hurt more than the first. This is why your growth during the silence matters more than their return. You cannot control when they feel the pull. You cannot control when nostalgia outweighs pride. You cannot control when loneliness cracks their certainty, but you can control who they meet when they come back. Do they meet the same version of you? The one who tolerates breadcrumbs? The one who accepts half effort because it feels better than nothing? Or do they meet someone centered, someone who listens but does not chase, someone who is open but not desperate? Avoidants are hyper-aware of emotional shifts. They sense pressure instantly, but they also sense strength. Strength is not coldness. It is calm boundaries. It is measured responses. It is not jumping at every message. It is not rearranging your life for crumbs of attention. When they test the waters, you respond with warmth, not urgency, interest, not intensity. You allow space for them to lean in, because for an avoidant, leaning in must feel like their choice. And here is the deeper truth. Sometimes they will not come back. Sometimes their fear wins. Sometimes their pattern is stronger than their attachment. Sometimes distance turns into permanence. And if that happens, the version of you who did the work will not break the way you once did. You will grieve, yes, but you will not beg. You will not abandon yourself trying to convince someone to choose you. That is evolution. The silence that once felt unbearable becomes the forge that strengthened you. The uncertainty that once consumed you becomes the lesson that sharpened your standards. You stop romanticizing potential. You start valuing consistency. You stop chasing chemistry. You start requiring emotional safety. And when you operate from that place, everything changes. Not just with this person, with everyone. Because the energy you carry determines the connections you attract. If they return and see someone who no longer tolerates emotional distance without accountability, they either rise to meet you or fall away. Both outcomes serve you. This is the part most people miss. The goal was never just their return. The goal was your transformation. The waiting period was not punishment. It was preparation. Preparation to detach from outcomes. Preparation to build self-trust. Preparation to stop outsourcing your worth to someone who struggles with closeness. Right now, you stand at a crossroads. You can keep obsessing over timelines, over signs, over every tiny signal. Or you can redirect that energy inward and become so emotionally steady that whether they come back or not, you remain powerful. That is the real victory. When you no longer fear their silence, when you no longer chase their validation, when you no longer shrink to keep them comfortable, that is when love stops being something you beg for and starts being something you choose. And when you choose, everything becomes intentional. You stop reacting to every notification like it holds your future. You stop scanning their words for hidden meaning. You stop living in emotional suspense. You become decisive. Because here is the truth that changes the game. Avoidant exes do not return because you waited long enough. They return because the emotional dynamic changed, and the only part of that dynamic you control is you. If they feel the same version of you they left, the same emotional intensity, the same anxiety, the same unspoken demand for reassurance, their system will shut down again. It does not matter how much they missed you. Fear will override longing. But if they feel grounded energy, calm presence, emotional self-sufficiency, something unfamiliar happens inside them. Their nervous system does not register threat. It registers safety. Safety invites closeness. Closeness builds connection. Connection creates the possibility of something different. This is why your discipline right now matters more than your feelings. Feelings will scream at you to reach out, to check, to test, to make sure you still matter. Discipline whispers something stronger. Hold your ground, not to manipulate, not to play games, but to protect your growth. Every time you resist the urge to chase, you strengthen self-trust. Every time you redirect your focus back to your own life, you rewire your attachment patterns. You move from anxiety to stability, from reaction to intention. And this shift does more than influence them. It transforms you, because even if they never return, you will never again accept a love that requires you to shrink, to beg, to overprove your worth. You will see red flags faster. You will set boundaries sooner. You will walk away cleaner. That is power most people never develop. Now imagine this. They reach out. Simple message, casual tone, as if time erased the silence. Old you would have rushed in. Fast replies, emotional openness, relief flooding your system. New you pauses, not to punish, not to act distant, but to stay centered. You respond warmly, but you do not overextend. You engage, but you do not overinvest. You allow space for them to show consistency, effort, accountability. Because words mean nothing without behavior. Avoidants often test connection before committing to it. They dip a toe in, then pull back, then lean forward again. If you anchor yourself in calm boundaries, you become steady ground. If you get pulled into emotional extremes, the instability confirms their fears. This is where the cycle either repeats or breaks, and breaking it requires courage. Courage to say what you need without apology. Courage to walk away if old patterns reappear. Courage to value your peace more than temporary attention. That courage is built in the silence you survived. You did not collapse. You did not disappear. You endured uncertainty and came out stronger. That means something. It means you are no longer driven by fear of abandonment. You are driven by clarity. Clarity about what love should feel like. Safe, consistent, reciprocal, not intense and confusing, not passionate and unstable, not magnetic and painful. Real love does not require you to prove your worth. If they come back ready to grow, you will meet them from strength. If they come back unchanged, you will see it clearly. If they never come back, you will still stand firm, because the real return was yours. You returned to yourself, to your standards, to your boundaries, to your power. And when you operate from that place, you stop waiting for someone to validate your value. You already know it. That is the stage most people never reach. And once you reach it, you never go back. And once you reach it, you never go back. Because something inside you has recalibrated. You no longer confuse intensity with intimacy. You no longer mistake distance for mystery. You no longer romanticize emotional unavailability as depth. You see clearly now, and clarity is dangerous to old patterns. This is the final shift, the one that determines whether this story becomes a lesson or a breakthrough. An avoidant ex returning is not the victory. The victory is becoming someone who does not need them to return in order to feel whole. Let that sink in. When you needed them back to feel okay, you were operating from lack, from scarcity, from fear that this was your only shot at connection. But now, you understand something deeper. If someone can walk away from you without fighting for the relationship, they are showing you their current capacity. Not your worth, their capacity. And capacity can only change if the person chooses growth. You cannot inspire that by chasing. You cannot force that by proving yourself. You cannot earn it by loving harder. Growth is a decision they must make alone. Your decision is different. Your decision is whether you will ever again accept half of what you deserve. This is where the urgency becomes real. Every day you spend obsessing over their timeline is a day you delay your own evolution. Every hour you replay old conversations is energy stolen from building a future that excites you. Time is not neutral. It is either building you or draining you. Choose wisely. Right now, somewhere inside you, there is still a voice hoping for a message, a call, a sign that they finally see your value. That hope is human. But do not let hope turn into self-abandonment. Do not shrink your standards just because they finally reappear. If they return, they must return to a new dynamic. One built on communication, on accountability, on emotional presence, not vague promises, not chemistry alone. And if they cannot meet that standard, you walk. Not angrily, not dramatically, calmly, because you are no longer afraid of being alone. You have already survived the silence you thought would break you. That means you can survive anything. There is something powerful about someone who stays soft but becomes strong. Someone who still believes in love but refuses to beg for it. Someone who can open their heart without lowering their standards. Become that person. Not for them, for you. Because whether this avoidant ex returns or fades into memory, your life is still unfolding. Your future relationships are still forming. Your story is still being written, and the version of you that emerges from this chapter will determine the quality of everything that follows. Do not waste this pain. Use it. Let it teach you emotional regulation. Let it teach you patience. Let it teach you discernment. Let it sharpen your boundaries until they are clear and unshakable. When you stop fearing loss, you stop tolerating less. When you stop chasing validation, you start attracting respect. When you stop clinging to potential, you